A very warm welcome to you as you join us on today's episode of Tax Matters. We think it is still in order to wish our Muslim compatriots happy Eid el-Kabir. My name is Pearl Nameka, and with me on the episode is Radiance Chiamaka.
Hello viewers, happy Eid el-Kabir.
We are staying with our central theme of our last two episodes on tax matters. How do we institutionalize the tax-paying culture in the Nigerian polity?
So far, we've brought you interviews with Dr. Mark Bani and Chief Olorileke.
And also Mrs. Adegbimpe Balogun and Mr. J.K. Nayeju.
All of them leading lights in the taxation subsector in Nigeria.
Today, our guest is Mr. Adesina Adedayo, Deputy Vice President, CITN. But before Mr. Adesina comes on, we want to share with you what we got, still on the same theme, from top-notch tax administrators and tax practitioners.
The interviews, like the previous ones, were conducted on the sidelines of the 20th Annual Tax Conference held in Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, in May 2018.
What are the critical factors, the must-dos in our quest to institutionalize the tax-paying culture in Nigerians?
How do we get the rich to pay adequate taxes?
And should the poor pay taxes?
What would you say are the critical factors in institutionalizing the tax-paying culture in Nigeria?
One, simplicity of taxes. We don't want ambiguity. If as a taxpayer I go to the tax laws and I know what taxes to pay and the due dates to pay those taxes, then it will be easy. Then also administration. I know that the government is trying to do a lot of things. I can see FIRS, the Federal Inland Revenue Service, moving in the line of electronic e-tax, ETCC, e-filing, and what have you, which makes it a lot more easier, e-payments, and it becomes comfortable. So when tax is simple, then we'll also have the right culture in paying taxes. There should also be a lot more awareness, sensitization. People should know why they have to pay taxes. And then there's also the bit of accountability. We cannot overemphasize that fact. A lot of times we'll say we push justification of taxes aside and then we pay our taxes and sit back and watch government do what? You look down your street and then you see someone who has parked 10, 20 cars in his house and he's not even paying tax. He's not been brought into the tax net. So the government can, do a lot to broaden the tax net. Taxes in other countries, in other jurisdictions, in other climes are a lot more simpler. People know what it is. And also the punitive measures are there, yes. People know that if I do not pay these taxes and I'm caught, I may be jailed, I may be punished, and so they have the right attitude. Of course, with the VADs, Voluntary Assets and Income Declaration Scheme, I think the government has done a lot more to say, look, just come declare what it is. You have these incentives given to you. Also today we talked about the disincentiveness of tax incentives, and we have also said that for tax policy makers, for the legislators, and for the tax administrators, we need to think twice. We need to be a lot more careful in giving these incentives. But again, will it increase the taxes, the revenue? Yes. Will it also improve the GDP? Perhaps, maybe.
In your practice as a tax administrator, what are the challenges you face in the field?
We have a couple of challenges. One is simplicity of taxes, to know what to pay and when to pay it. Again, we also mentioned the issue of the attitude of the tax administrators. We want the tax administrator to take away the unconscious bias that they have towards taxpayers. You don't want to think that I have evaded taxes or I am evading tax. You need to understand what is it in my tax planning. What have I, sought to do? And then we'll check it. Is it right? Is it wrong? Our jurisdiction is a self-assessment regime. So the laws have allowed me as a taxpayer or a company to file its tax returns, and then the government comes to check it. So we want to see more regular checks. We don't want to file returns and then the administrators are sleeping and then come back after 2-3 years. Of course, with what the government is doing, FIS has tried a lot in that bit, trying to do more current taxes, bringing the tax books up to date so that we can all sort it out and then go to sleep.
Again, what are the critical factors in institutionalizing tax-paying culture in the citizenry?
Well, to change people's culture about particular things is not easy. Orientation of people should be changed. Right now, people are saying government are not doing anything. Why are we paying tax? To change that orientation, government should do certain things that are tangible for people to see. And if people see this, that government in all stratas, at the levels of governments, the federal government, the state governments, and the local governments are doing something tangible. If people see this, I think their orientation will change, their culture will change. Tax administrators will not have to force taxpayers to pay tax, because people will know that, yes, their money are put in use.
How do we get the high net worth individuals to pay adequate taxes?
High net worth, for example, the top businessmen, their mentality in tax payments is low. To get them to pay tax, as I said, there must be change in tax policies, change in tax administration. There must be change in certain laws. Those loopholes in laws that they use should be sealed up, should be new legislations to make them see. Because if there are no legislation to back the administrators up, it's difficult to get to those high net worth taxpayers to get the right tax they should pay. But if there are legislations that will compel them to pay, and if you don't pay, certain penalties follows. Or if those legislations are put in place, those high net worth taxpayers will come out voluntarily to pay, because they know if they don't, this is what will happen to them.
Do you think the poor should pay taxes?
Nobody should be exempted from tax, whether you are poor or rich. But the fact is, it should be paid according to income. If you have 10 naira income, you should pay tax according to 10 naira income. If you have 1 million income, you should pay tax according to. That's why we have pay as you earn. I think the poor and the rich should pay tax, but according to what you earn as income.
What are the challenges you face in the field as a tax administrator?
The laws are too old. We need a review. We definitely need a review. So the practitioners, I would say, because most times we find it difficult to trace taxpayers. Some of them are portfolio taxpayers, but the tax practitioners surely will know where their clients are. So they should encourage them to be more transparent with the tax administrators. It will make our job easy.
Now, looking at the tax to GDP ratio of Nigeria, which is 6%, what do you think could be done to increase it to a double digit?
We need to increase our tax base, and FRS is doing that, bringing more people into the tax nets.
How do we get the high net worth individuals to pay the adequate taxes?
Well, we come back again to the tax practitioners, because like a man going to the Corporate Affairs Commission to register his company, we definitely need a tax practitioner to do that for him. Then at the end of the day, it's boiled down to the tax practitioners telling them to do the right thing.
Do you think the poor should also pay taxes?
Yes. Tax is just like debt. It's a certain thing. We all have to pay tax. Even the dead man pays tax. Yes.
In your opinion, what could you say should be done to institutionalize the tax-paying culture in the citizenry?
When people see that the taxes that are being paid are judiciously used, I think it could spur people to pay voluntarily. If people see that the means of payment, the process of making these payments are not too hard to do, it will be easier for them to do it voluntarily. So apart from the fact that they see what government is using their money for, the process to which you pay those taxes must also be made easier for them. And I like what the Federal Inland Revenue Service is doing. They've gone ahead to simplify the information that are needed to pay tax, to the extent of having it in different languages. So you cannot have any excuse if you're a Nigerian that you don't know how to pay tax or what to pay. All you need to do is to get any of these leaflets they do, even on the electronic media, they are always there. So I'm very sure, I'm very convinced that with this type of awareness creation or creating of awareness, the payment of tax will increase. I'm very sure of that.
How do you think we could get the high net worth individuals to pay adequate taxes?
If you want to vie for political posts in Nigeria. Let's see your tax clearance. You will see that a lot of them will comply. Most of the people that are given contracts by government, are they asking for tax clearance from them? In the place I work, in my office, you cannot be a tax defaulter and you expect us to give you contract. It's not possible. This should be done in every government establishment, not even private. Before you give out work to anybody, let them tender their evidence of payment of tax. I'm sure we can catch a lot of these high net worth people through this. And I'm also happy for the property tax that somehow, I know it's painful to some people, but I think the property tax is also a way by which you want to drag those kind of people into the tax net.
Apart from the high net worth individuals, do you think that the poor should pay taxes?
What? Once you earn income, you must pay tax.
What are your challenges you face in the field as a tax administrator?
First of all, you look at the people you administer tax on. Most people are illiterate. So the issue of being able to know what tax is all about is a critical thing. And then convenience is also a critical aspect of it. We look at where we can make tax convenient, people can pay easily. And then light, the infrastructure, they are not there. So sometimes technology is very expensive. So those are quite a number of issues that we face in administering tax.
How have you tackled these challenges you face in the field?
It's been quite challenging. And as an administrator, you all depend on the government. The government can start a certain thing. So, but we do our best by advising the government. They have the wherewithal to checkmate some of these things, especially like when you talk of automation. If the government doesn't do that, there is no way you as a tax administrator can do that. So making tax simple and simplified is what we should do and what the government should do.
How do we get the high net worth individuals in Nigeria to pay the adequate amount of taxes?
Yeah, it's quite a little bit easy because a lot of high net worth individuals, they have bank accounts, they have buildings, they drive cars, expensive cars. So what we do is you do a little bit of investigation by sending people to go to events, probably look at their bank account if you have access to that. From there, you can draw up an assessment of what they would likely earn as an individual, and then you subject that to tax.
In your opinion, do you think the poor should pay taxes?
Anybody that earns as an income should pay tax, no matter how little. That's why the tax law gives credence to that. You pay as you earn. So if you earn less, you pay less. If you earn more, you pay more. So everybody should pay tax because taxes, what we derive from taxes is used to fund infrastructure. So as far as you benefit from those infrastructure, definitely you should pay taxes.
What challenges do you face on the field in administering taxes, in dealing with taxpayers?
Well, the issue of tax evasion is an issue that we have tried to deal with as an agency. And apart from that, even having to capture data is also another challenge that we're having. So we are beginning to look at the use of IT to, as a tool in gathering data information, because this is very, very key in the administration of our taxes. Yeah.
What is your experience with high net worth individuals, the highly placed, those who earn a lot of money?
Oh yes, that is one sector really that has been of a great challenge to us as an agency, and I think now there's been a lot of enlightenment, and the agency is even doing much more than we used to do to actually, bring these ones in and get them to pay the taxes that is due. We do what's called a BOJ for them, and then they don't have a choice but to come and say, oh no, what you have slammed on me is not actually what I'm earning, and they begin to present to us, their data and informations that we actually require for their proper assessment.
Every day, my people they for work. Some they do office work. Some get it, them own business, so all of them want good road, constant power for better life. Whether now office work, oh yeah, pay your tax. Whether now your own business, oh pay your tax. If you want a better life, oh pay your tax. Now your civic responsibility, pay your tax. Better soup, now money cook am. Oh yes. Nothing goes for nothing, my brother. If you want potable water, security and hospital for make life jolly.
That's right. Good roads, good hospitals, portable water, adequate security all come from taxpayers' money. Play your part in making Nigeria great. Everybody, small scale, big companies, entrepreneurs, do the right thing. Pay your tax. This message is from the Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS.
Welcome back. We move on to our guest corner where we have Mr. Additional Adedayo waiting. Of course, the conversation is still along the same line. How do we institutionalize the tax-paying culture in Nigerians?
Hello and welcome to our guest corner. On set today is a very big personality in the tax profession in Nigeria. Mr. Additional Adedayo, a chartered accountant, chartered tax practitioner, is currently the second vice president of the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria. Mr. Adedayo, you are welcome to Tax Matters.
Thank you.
Institutionalizing tax-paying culture in the Nigerian populace. What are the critical factors, what are the critical elements that need to be in place to take us towards that goal?
Thank you very much. The starting point is, even from the team, the word is institutionalizing, not personalizing. The implication of that is simple. And tax-paying culture becomes an issue that has become part of our system. It makes it easy for people to say, I want to pay my tax. Now, if we come back home, like you said, and we look at some few examples like Lagos State, you see the wonders that are going on in Kwara State. You see the Federal Inland Revenue Service coming up with initiatives, including pragmatic solutions to challenges we are facing. You will realize that tax is no longer coming as any other business on the agenda. It has become the main issue on the agenda of the Nigerian polity. Education must come first. Tax is not just a profession that anybody can dabble into. There are technical terms, there are unique ways it's being done, there are administrative challenges, there are legislative issues to be considered. People must be educated in order for them to be able to cope with what tax is all about. Now, when it becomes a culture is something that you're already used to. When tax becomes a culture that all of us has bought into, then it makes it easy for you to flow naturally and see it as an obligation you have to carry out. Now, obligations also requires the fact that when you are in charge of the tax that has been collected, which is the government aspect, because it's a two-way thing. When people have made it a culture to pay tax, then the government should also make it a culture to also ensure that the accountability factor is not compromised. It is very important.
There are two sides to this tax compliance issue. The tax collector on one hand, the taxpayer on the other hand. You are a tax consultant. What is your experience on the field? How do you relate to the tax administrators? How do you relate to your clients, the taxpayers?
Thank you very much once again. Naturally, what happens is that the first resistance that comes from the taxpayer's angle is that we don't know what they are doing with the money. That is one. And then secondly, after using that as a rationalization basis, which doesn't necessarily, is neither here nor there, you see that one, using that now give them a sort of moral stand to say, why should I pay when the people we pay to end up talking about using the money for something other than the common good? That's one. Now, from the tax collector's perspective, it is also going to be demoralizing for a tax collector to go to the field trying to convince a taxpayer to fulfill his civic responsibility and not being able to also use evidence of the fact that taxpayers' money is doing the right thing for taxpayers. So that is also another challenge for them. Now, there is a psychological resistance when it comes to payment of tax. naturally, even where there are evidence relating to it. Because one, people have this feeling that, look, this money belongs to me. Why should I allow the government to take, just put his shovel there and then take his own share? But be that as it may, there are a lot of things, like I said before on this same program, there are a lot of things that when you eliminate governance, all of us will have a situation of emergency. No matter what. I said something earlier when I came earlier to this program that if you say the police are not good enough, imagine a situation, create a scenario where there are no police at all within the system as a result of the fact that we are not comfortable with it. You will now realize that nobody will feel safe anymore because you can easily improve bad policing. But where there is no policing, what happens? You have chaos. So whatever it is, when it becomes a culture, we realize that if there are challenges, we address the challenges, and then we find a way of making sure that all those challenges will grow from that aspect. There is no perfect task system anywhere. There will always be one or two areas where we will need to improve, either from the administrative side or from even the legislative side, or even from the policy direction. All these are issues that must be addressed from time to time because the economy keeps changing. The business model keeps changing. Economic challenges also can lead to legislators coming up with a tax law that people will now need to study and see where do I key into it. It is very important. A culture means it evolves and then it keeps becoming part of the people's natural lifestyle.
If I approach you as a prospective taxpayer, or maybe I'm even paying and I think that, oh, I'm not doing well enough and I want the services of an expert, what will you advise me to do? What are the steps I have to take to become more and more compliant?
If you come to me as a taxpayer, the starting point is I need to educate you. What are those taxes you must pay to federal government? What are those taxes you must pay to state government? What are those taxes you must pay to the local government? All this education must first be known to you. You must know why you are paying personal income tax. What exactly is the difference between personal income tax and companies' income tax? So because you see some situation where somebody, for example, is a 99% shareholder of his company, and he will look at it and say, look, how many taxes will I pay? I pay personal tax. I'm the owner of my company. The tax I pay at corporate level should be sufficient for personal. No, it doesn't work that way. There is a legal personality, there is a natural personality. And you must understand that the law recognizes that the company you formed was given an existence by the law. And that law also recognizes the fact that you need to fulfill certain obligations based on the fact that there is what is called a separate entity. And that is why you opted for a limited liability company. You want to limit your liability in case of exposure. And you do not want to enjoy the fact that, look, that immunity given to you by virtue of the limited by shares, you also have a responsibility to pay your tax on what that company generates.
The law confers limited liability status on my company. Sure. And it offers me protection in that regard.
Exactly, exactly. And that is why, your liability is limited. There are some things you will do that it is your company that gets sued, not you as a person. It is only when it now engages in something that has to do with criminal cover that the law will now lift the veil and want to see the person behind the company. Naturally, we relate with a lot of companies. We don't ask who their shareholders are because the company itself has a personality of its own. That's the position. So education is the starting point, and immediately after the education, all other things you now do will flow. Because when a taxpayer is sufficiently educated on why, the main issue is why should I pay this tax? And if you do not explain the why to him, it will look as if the instrument of law is being used to oppress him.
Then he now goes on
He goes on and then becomes, exactly, he has to keep the records. If your record is not telling or corroborating your status, then you have an issue. It's about what are the facts on ground. What exactly is the essence of the transaction? Were they wholly? Were they exclusively? Were they reasonably? Were they necessary in the first place? All these issues must be satisfied in order for you to have a leeway as to how to justify your expenditure.
And when you get to the tax administrator on my behalf, if they raise issues you sort things out as a lawyer would do to his client?
Exactly. And it becomes very easy for a tax practitioner and a tax administrator to resolve issues because we are all guided by law. If we have a difference of opinion, then we go back to the law and say, what exactly did the law say? And where you even have a different interpretation of the law, there are procedures for us to adjudicate and get to a solution on that particular matter. Very important.
It's very interesting talking to you. We thank you for coming, and we hope that if we call you again, you will hit to our call.
Thank you
very much for coming.
Thank you, sir.
We do sincerely hope that once again we have been able to broaden your knowledge of the workings of the Nigerian tax system. This only happens on Tax Matters. Let's do it again next week.
Same station, same day of the week, same time of the day. Bye for now.